Hello, legends. So, what if I told you you could have your own AI caller, totally in-house, that has a roughly 1 second latency and it costs roughly 1 cent per minute to run? No VAPI, no bland, no retail. Totally your own code that you're running on Replit. And it can do this entire system. It can do inbound calls, outbound calls, and function calling. But for this video, I'm going to keep things super simple. I'm going to show you how the system works for inbound calls, for just general FAQ answering. We're going to be using OpenAI as the backend to manage the entire conversation. And we're going to be using deepgram for speech to text and then text to speech. Now, if you like what you see in this video, and I'm going to be demoing in just a second, if you like what you see in this video and you want to see something like outbound calling, if you want to see function calling, if you want to see ElevenLabs instead of deepgram for the actual text to speech, then drop comments below. Let me know what you want to see. Yeah, like this video, share it, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. But let me just quickly demo exactly how this is going to sound. So let me call up Bart's Automotive.
Welcome to Bart's Automotive. How can I help you today?
Hi, what are your open hours?
We're open Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to
Ah,
5 p.m.
beautiful. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to try and come in on Tuesday. What services do you offer?
We offer car service, brake repairs, transmission work, towing, and general repairs. Let us know what you need.
Okay, awesome. You know what? I'm actually going to give you a call a little bit later in this week when I figure out my schedule, but you are my favorite automotive store, Bart's Automotive. I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. We truly appreciate your support. See you soon.
All right, see ya. Ciao, ciao. All right, guys, so that was a demonstration. Again, roughly 1 cent per minute to run, roughly 1 second latency. We're using deepgram here. ElevenLabs would have even better voice technology. So let me know in the comments if you want to see more. Otherwise, let's get into this video and show you exactly how you can set this up in the next 10 minutes. All right, let's go. Okay, so let's start running through this. So what you can see here is just I've got the actual project already imported into Replit. So the first thing you're going to do after this video is just go across to my Gumroad. There's going to be a link in the description of this video. Go across to my Gumroad, it's going to be a zip file, unzip it, and then build it out into Replit exactly as I have here. And yeah, at a high level, I just want to show you a little bit of the Replit code. Then I want to show you some diagrams about how this code works. Then I'm going to come back into the code to explain it, and then another diagram, and then I'm going to show you how to plug it into Twilio as well. But it's a very basic code. What we have over here is the main logic. So this is like the main engine for this actual system. It's app.js, and it's not too long. What is it, like 120 lines of code? But what it does do, it uses a bunch of different services that we actually define over here in this services folder. So GPT service, stream service, transcription service, and text-to-speech service. And we're importing all those services into this main code, app.js. And at a high level, let me go across to this architecture here, and let me zoom in and explain what's happening. So what we're actually doing is we're using a bunch of different tools. And we're placing in a call, or a user is placing a call via Twilio. And then when that call is placed via Twilio, so we got a phone call placed, Twilio is then establishing a WebSocket connection for real-time communication. This is how we reduce the latency of the overall system, by establishing a WebSocket, right? So once we call the number, which is a Twilio-based number, we then establish a WebSocket connection with our WebSocket server. So the WebSocket server is just literally app.js. But this Replit deployment that's what we are essentially saying when we're saying, WebSocket server here. So this is just our Node.js project in Replit, and we have this WebSocket connected. And then once we have this connected, the user is then able to speak into the phone. For our case, we actually are spoken to first, but this is like a general diagram of how this overall system works. And what you see here, by the way, what I'm going to be explaining is all one turn. So user speaks, and then the AI agent gives a response. That's one complete turn. So after we have the call established, we have the WebSocket created into our server. The user will speak into the phone. So they'll say, "Hi, what times? What's your availability?" And we stream this audio directly from Twilio. So in real time, we're streaming it to the WebSocket server. And as it's streaming, we're taking that audio, sending it across to deepgram speech to text. So it's an API call that we're streaming across to deepgram we're taking that audio and converting it to text and sending that transcribed text back into our WebSocket server, so back into app.js file. And now that it's text, we can actually make a ChatGPT completions API call, which if I go to here, ChatGPT completions API call, and this is the layout of it, you can see we have like text input, so role system, content, you are a helpful assistant. Again, this is just text, so there's no audio inserted into here, it's just text. So that's what we're doing here. We have the transcribed audio returned as text. We send that text in this API call to GPT. And for our demo today, all we're doing is general FAQs. So let me just quickly, I want to show you the actual code a little bit like later on, but at a high level, here is like what you're familiar with. System role, and the content is you're a helpful assistant for Bart's Automotive. Here's your personality, and here's some basic FAQs. So if you wanted just an inbound FAQ caller, you would just set up a bunch of FAQs here. And then we're sending the first message as well. Hi, welcome to Bart's Automotive. How can I help you? So and in that same sense, so if I go back to this stuff here, if I click on functions, you can see that we can actually place define some tools and make a function call within this same API call. So what we're doing here is once we get that transcribed text from deepgram, we're making that API call, and we have so much freedom to say, all right, just answer the basic FAQs or make a function call. And if you watched my other real-time videos, we can make function calls that go across to make.com, where it's so much easier to manage like integration with different tools. Or you can make function calls directly into your software that you're using if you know how to make a function call, like if you're very good at, like making API calls. So that's what we're doing here. And once we finish that API call, we're taking that response back, which again, it's going to be in text format. And then we're taking that text and then we're sending it across to deepgram for text to speech. So we're generating the actual spoken version of that text. Now in this step for part 2 video, we could actually use ElevenLabs. I didn't use ElevenLabs for this video because I'm using deepgram for free. I signed up. There's like a free, they give you like a bunch of credit for free. Same with ElevenLabs. But ElevenLabs has got limitations on API calls. So if I was to do ElevenLabs right now on the free version without paying for it, I would hit API limits and I wouldn't be able to complete this demo. But yeah, you can definitely use ElevenLabs in this spot here. You can generate more realistic, different voices, whatever you want to do. But yeah, we're taking that the text, sending it across to deepgram, converting it to audio, like spoken audio, sending it back to our app.js file. And then from app.js, we're using that streaming server and we're sending it back to Twilio, which is then playing the audio back to the user. So at a high level, it'd be ring, ring. All right, phone is picked up. WebSocket is established. Hi, what are your open hours? Hi, what are your open hours? At the same time, just streaming across. And then here we would take the hi, what are your opening hours, convert it to text, send it back. We would place it into our ChatGPT API call. And then over here, it would use its own the FAQs that we generated, or it would use a function call, whatever we define. Send that text-based response back, and it might say, we're open from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. We'd send that text across to deepgram, and now it would take it and say, cool, we're open 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And then it would replay this back to the user. So it would be, what are your open hours? Everything happens. We're open 9 a.m. Monday to Friday. So going back into our code, now that we know at a high level what's actually going on, let me explain the various components. So if we look at app.js, when we actually call our Twilio number that I'm going to show you how to plug into here in a second, like a little bit later in this video, when we call the Twilio number, we're actually creating that WebSocket connection. So what we saw over here, the WebSocket, the streaming connection, all this stuff is created when we call the phone number, which then sends a request to this / incoming call webhook over here. We're setting up the actual the WebSocket as well as the streaming service. So if I go to streaming service here, this is why we're importing streaming service here into this app.js. Again, app.js is the master file, and then to keep things clean, we've segmented out different services that we're using into a services folder, just to make it very easy to work with. So GPT service, as you would think, is the ChatGPT call. Streaming service is the WebSocket and the streaming between our server and Twilio. The transcription service, as you can imagine, is turning our customer's audio into text. And then the text-to-speech service is taking the response from GPT and converting it into spoken word that we can then send back to the customer. So yeah, app.js, we call this. It sends the request to the / incoming call webhook. If we go to stream service, what have we got here? Yeah, we initialize the WebSocket connection. Sorry about that. And then we over here is where we actually manage like the transfer of audio between like the user and then our actual node server, so which is this, so like app.js. You can read some of the comments here. I'm not going to go too deep into it, mainly because you don't have to edit anything here at all. Like once you get this code, do not edit anything. Just use it. Like the only thing you would be editing really is GPT service. So you would change your own like content, FAQs, your first message here. You could change the model, but we'll get into this later on. And then you'd maybe be changing in your environment variables. You might change the voice that you're using from deepgram. That's the main stuff. So stream service, all you need to know is that it basically manages the chunks of audio that are being like played back to the customer and creating that WebSocket connection. So all the stuff that happens in here, all this kind of magical stuff in here, that's what is being managed in stream service. And as you go down, again, I'm not going to go through this little bit by little bit, but you can see I've left comments here at different stages. And all we're doing is essentially we're like taking the packets of audio from the customer, we're transcribing them, we're sending them to the GPT to get a response generated, then we're turning them into speech and sending them back to the user. So as you scroll down more, you can kind of read through whatever else is happening, some technical stuff here. We're handling interruptions, stuff like that. But if I go back to the top, so the next thing you'd want to look at is GPT service. So for a GPT service, as I already mentioned a few times, we've got our personality for the agent. We've got some FAQs. We're also using this thing here, which is sending a like a bullet symbol every 5 to 10 words to kind of make the conversation more natural, right? Because this is the response that we're generating that we're then going to convert into speech using deepgram or in the future elevenlabs. And we're technically building in this realism element by putting in this bullet point every 5 to 10 words. And then if we go over here, where is it? Somewhere here. Okay, here, when we hit a pause marker at the end, we send the chunk for speech. So that actually has some technical implications into our code. So we're sending that chunk ready for speech, which means we're speeding up the latency because we're not waiting for the overall response, like let's say it's 3 or 4 sentences, to be generated and then to be converted. We're breaking it up into little elements, like little chunks of audio. We're then converting it and sending it across actually to our streaming service. Now, our streaming service, by the way, has this buffer mechanism, which is then going to take all those little chunks of audio and it's going to sort them first, second, third, fourth, and it handles okay, your first chunk, I'm going to play the audio. So we take that chunk and then we use the send audio function to play that like snippet of audio. And then the buffer function goes to the next chunk and says, okay, is this next chunk complete? And is it the next chunk in order? Is it complete and ready to send? Cool, we send it. Or if it reviews it and it's like, oh, I'm actually looking for chunk 2, but the one I have in front of me is chunk 4. Okay, I'm gonna keep chunk 4, store it for sending later on. So make sure everything is being sent in order and there's no like mumbling, jumbling of how we're actually doing the audio playback to the user. So that's what we're doing there with the GPT service. Again, what you would really change here is potentially your model, but this is going to be defaulting to the latest GPT 4.0 model. And yeah, you would just change your first message. I'm going to show you where to change your first message here and where to change it in the actual app.js. And yeah, you would put your own, whatever you want to do, your own role for the user, and then the FAQs, you would just load them up into here. Now, if we did function calling as well, which we can do, then you'd obviously list your function calls here as well. And we would have a separate folder for all of our function calls. But now we know how the GPT works. And also, like once again, we know how the GPT works, that we're basically taking the transcribed text from the user and we're just using that in a basic ChatGPT API call. So there's no real magic here. It's nothing really crazy is going on. It's very obviously very basic stuff, taking the audio, transcribing it, making that API call. the same kind of API call that we're doing here. But the cool thing also to reduce latency even more is we're making this streaming API call. So in this streaming demo here for the chat completions, we're setting streaming to true. And if I go to our code and I scroll down, we've got streaming to true as well. So for a lot of these conversions, if I go back to here, I know I'm jumping around a lot. For a lot of these conversions, we're trying to use streaming as much as possible. I think here we're not using streaming because it's a little bit difficult to manage the streaming of audio, but we are using streaming for here and for here, and that's how we can reduce the latency. I think ElevenLabs has like some other, like they're better at converting text to speech. They have some like efficiency, so I think you could improve the latency by like 300 to 500 milliseconds. Which is, look, it's not so much, but I think like as a human, when you're speaking to this AI, that would make a probably considerable difference, because the difference between 0.7 of a second and then 1 second, I think there's a lot. I think it's a lot. You might not be able to tell, like if you're looking like, oh, it's just 300 milliseconds, like it's less than half a second. But I think as a human, you can kind of pick up those nuances. But you saw anyway, it's pretty quick. Like it's not a perfect system, of course not, but it's roughly 1 cent per minute. When you consider, like I did the deepgram calcs, I looked at how many minutes I had, like how much time I had transcribed and how much time and how many spoken words I had. And I did some high level calculations and I converted it to like what it cost me. And then both of these services, what was used. And it was less than a cent per minute. But then you have to also consider what does the OpenAI API call cost you. So it's roughly 1 cent, which is like, I think the next best would be 5 cents from, I don't know, Vapi or Bland or something. So look, it's pretty good. We're just speaking in cents here, but if you've got a massive operation, then obviously, you know, being 5 times cheaper than, you know, like 5 cents per minute to 1 cent per minute, I think that's a considerable, like it's heaps. It's a big difference. Okay, so from here, yeah, we're speaking about, like, make sure you include this. We covered everything off here. Streaming service we spoke about, transcription service. So what do we have? We're setting up the actual settings for our transcription service. You can go to the deepgram API documentation and just see how you can like adjust some of the settings here to maybe try and improve some of the latency. But overall, you wouldn't change anything here at all. If you did want to change the voice, sorry, for text to speech, I'm jumping the gun here. We'll get to that later on. But yeah, we're basically managing everything in here. You don't need to change anything here. You can just run this system. And same thing with text to speech. So text to speech, everything is being set up. We're configuring our settings, making our API call. The voice model that we're using is right now Aura Asteria /EN. So you can go to the developer docs for deepgram and just listen to the other voices. This is the very top one on the list, the current list, whatever they have. And yeah, it's a decent enough voice, but I think ElevenLabs would be better. And that's text to speech. So I know we spoke about at a high level, like what's happening mechanically behind the scenes. And what I think would be interesting as well, and I'm gonna show you this in a second, is, okay, now we have all these files. How do all these files work? Because it's confusing to see this, but then to have different file names. So I've also made a mermaid graph. So like we had over here, the user places a call, and we're starting from here up top. The user starts a call, and then we have app.js, which streams the audio. And that streaming audio is from this stream service. So we're calling up, we go into this webhook, and we initiate this stream service, which sets up the WebSocket connection and sets up the streaming service that we're going to be between Twilio and our server. So this thing. So we call up, we call to app.js, we set up that streaming audio, that streaming service is now enabled, and whenever the user speaks, we take the spoken word from the user, we transcribe it with our transcription service, which is transcription service here. So that's where this file comes into play. Mermaid, I want to bring it up to here. We transcribe it using the deepgram speech to text API. So this is why we're just kind of transcribing it and sending the transcribed text back. Then we're going to our next step, which is GPT service, which is GPT service here. And once again, we've got the transcribed text. We're passing it through to our GPT service. We're sending it to OpenAI to generate our response. So we can have a text-based response here. And again, we could do function calling in the future, but we're just doing general FAQs. We take the response that was generated from the GPT service, send it across to our text-to-speech service, which is text-to-speech service over here. and then we convert it to audio using the deepgram text-to-speech API. So we convert it, we send it back, and then we plug it right back into that streaming service. So back into the streaming service, and then we play it back basically to the caller, which is this section here. After the streaming service, we're sending it back to the caller. So I know I'm showing you a lot of graphs here. I'm mainly doing this because it was confusing for me to kind of get my head wrapped around all of these separate files. I ended up finding this actual, like a different set of files from Twilio that I just like stripped down to the most basic sense to make this inbound FAQ caller. And I think it's important to understand how this stuff works, because then you can actually build off it and introduce different like functions and features. But at a high level, this is how it works. And technically, we could have put all of this into just the app.js file, but it would have been pretty difficult to then go in as a beginner, or you've just done a couple of these projects, and then know what to edit and how to edit it. Now, since it's split up, you know that you don't have to touch anything here, you don't have to edit anything here, same thing here, same thing here. And really all you need to do is for the GPT, you can just come into here and change the content that's provided for the system role, change your first message. Okay, I'm going to tell you what it changes this to. So for your first message, if we scroll down, we will change this. I've just copied and pasted my first message that I had from my GPT service, so this is what's spoken to me when the phone is first picked up. And I'm including the welcome message here because in the object that I'm creating for the conversation history, this is a variable that I'm basically taking every time a message is asked by the user and an AI generates a response. We're taking that as an object and we're pushing it into our conversation variable, and then we're feeding it back in for every subsequent request. And that's why our GPT, which is just a static completions API call, that's why it can remember all the previous, like whatever was spoken, because we're feeding in the previous conversation. So that's how we have like a natural ongoing convo. So that's explained here. As you can see, it's not too difficult. The app.js manages the entire conversation from start to finish. It's calling all these separate services. And yeah, if we were to build out like the GPT service to have function calls, once again, we'd have another folder for function calls and make it super easy to manage. I think what the difficulty here is, like when using something like Vapi or Bland, their actual platform is so nice. It's like drag and drop interface, even retail, drag and drop interface to create different pathways. It's very user-friendly. You don't have to do any coding. So the hurdle that we have, if we're building this for our own businesses, I'm just speaking as like a business owner or someone that's interested in running this for my own business, right? The hurdle is, how do we also, like, now that we have our own code, how do we make it easy to manage and easy to build in the future? And I think a lot of that comes to organization, how you organize your files, how you split up all these different services into separate files. So it's very easy to go back, redo, edit. If like an API call updates for deepgram, you know exactly which file to come into. And this is like all you would change for this specific service. You wouldn't have to go into here and change anything else. It'd all be localized in this file. So that's probably the trade-off if you're not using, what is it? Retail or Vapi or Bland, which have very nice front-end user interfaces. That's our trade-off here. Just organize these files as nicely as possible. So if we're looking at how to plug this into your, like, let's say you get this code and you've deployed it. So now that you understand how all this works, let's actually go into the configuration of all this stuff. So really the core configuration occurs in the env file. So we have to do a couple of things. We have to set up our server, which is just basically us deploying this, Replit to be live. We get our OpenAI key, which is this. So you go to OpenAI, like platform.openai.com, get your API key. For deepgram, same thing. Go create a deepgram account. You have like a bunch of credit free to initially use. I'm not going to show you how to create your deepgram account or where to get your API key. I'm going to assume that you can do that yourself. You'll be very easy. So you generate your API key and you paste it into here. And your voice, you could just leave it like this. Everyone's going to have access to the exact same voice. So really all you need to do is just change these two for your own API keys. And for server, let me actually just show you how to deploy this right now. So if you want to do testing, by the way, you can just hit run here, and this generates a development server. So all I did was I copied this and I pasted it into here. But when I pasted it, I removed this trailing / and I removed this HTTPS. and these forward slashes. And the reason we're setting up this server here is because in app.js, we're actually then, like when we're calling our Twilio number, we're sending a post webhook from Twilio into this code, into this deployment, into this endpoint here. And over here, we actually have to say, okay, like once we get the code into here, we're now establishing the WebSocket connection. So we need to take the call from here and flick it across into this section. And to do that, we have to use the server URL and then say the endpoint is /connection. So that's what we're doing here. So the new call comes into here, and then from here, we're taking this and we're saying, cool, all right, now that we're here, we're authorized to create a new phone call via a WebSocket, and then we're sending it into here. So that's what we're doing. And this server URL is just what we did over here. That's why we pasted into the environment variable, because we're using the environment file for the server variable. But if we're deploying this live, you would go to deploy here. I always use the basic deployment settings. You can use auto scale, set up your deployment, let's approve. This is going to be the primary URL that we're going to be using when we're deploying, so you can change this to whatever you want. I'm going to leave it like this, and I'm going to deploy. It's going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to come back to here, and when it's deployed, we're going to take that URL and we're actually going to replace it into here, because now our server is going to be like, since we're deploying it, this URL, deployed URL, is going to be always on. This method here of me doing stop and run is like temporary, just to test it in this specific instance. But since we're deploying it, it's always going to be on. It's always going to be available. So if you want to make an AI caller for your business, you would deploy it exactly like what I've done here. So we're going to change this URL in a second. And when we change this URL, we're also going to go across to Twilio console. So go to your Twilio, find your region, find the number that you want to edit. In my case, I'm editing this Australian number. And all we need to do is place our deployed URL from Replit into here and have it with the /incoming, because the /incoming is exactly this here. So we're pointing our we're pointing the phone call into this webhook to run this functionality. So yeah, I'm just going to give it a few more seconds to deploy. Shouldn't be too long. If you guys are enjoying this video right now, comment, like, subscribe, share. Help me grow my channel. That would be amazing. It'd be really cool. And if there's other things that you want to see, if you want to see me, I don't know, like I'm doing a lot of work around AI for communication for businesses. That's really popular. So if you have specific use cases you want to see, certain builds, ping them across, and I'm happy to like look into it, build it out. It would be pretty fun as well. But this should be finished shortly. All right, so we're nearly finished. We're finishing up our final steps here. Okay, we've deployed. So now what we need to do, I'm just going to click this to open it, and I'm going to copy this entire URL, and I'm going to go back to our .env file. And again, this URL before was our like local deployment URL. Now that we've deployed live to be able to target this whenever 24/7, we have to use this URL. So I'm going to backspace all this. I'm going to paste in the URL that I just copied, and we have to remove the HTTPS and the / from the front. We have to remove the trailing / here. And since I've just edited this, we have to redeploy. We have to go back into here and re-push this change into our live deployment. So I'm going to hit redeploy. And this is going to take a couple of seconds, a lot faster than the first time we just deployed. And now I'm going to go to the Twilio console, and I'm going to take all this stuff and I'm going to paste in the redeployed URL in full. And as you'll see here, I've got double / because I didn't backspace everything that I needed to backspace. So make sure that you just got one / here. And yeah, your code, your URL is obviously going to be different to my URL. But you have to have this / incoming at the end. Once again, so every time we call this number, it's going to send a webhook request to this URL. It's going to be a post request. And yeah, it's going to be targeting, once again, this bit here. Like this is the bread and butter of our entire conversation. Like we call here, we set up the WebSocket, we set up the streaming, and then we can speak back and forth with our user. And there we go, we just redeployed the update from our env file. So this thing is now going to be live. So whoops, back in Twilio console. So I've just updated my URL. I didn't have to remove the trailing or the trailing / or the leading stuff here. I just pasted it exactly as it was. So I'm going to hit save. Once this saves, we're going to go and give this we're going to demo this out. So if I open up the logs, we should be able to see when I call up, but it might be a little bit difficult, but I'm going to call anyway. So now to call, all I'm going to be doing is calling the Twilio number. So this number here, which you're not going to, I'm going to black this out, but I'm going to be calling this number, and it's going to now forward it across to our assistant. So let me call that number.
Welcome to Bart's Automotive. How can I help you today?
Hi, what are the open hours?
We're open Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay, awesome. What services do you offer?
We offer car service, brake repairs, transmission works.
Awesome, thank you. See ya. So yeah, basically we have all the logs of the conversation here. And you can see, yeah, these logs that are coming up here also, we're seeing interaction 0, interaction 1, interaction 2. So we're sending logs. If you really wanted to do, you can take this code into ChatGPT and just break down what kind of logs we're sending, but we're sending sequential logs, so you can see kind of which message was sent first, which was sent second, and you can just see the ordering of it. You could really dumb down these logs because you don't need everything, but you can see here we're starting the media stream, interaction 0, so text to speech. We're actually sending the message to the front end, so to the user. Welcome to Bart's Automotive. How can I help you? I think we can see here. So we got interaction 0, speech to text to the GPT. So I spoke, hi, what are the open hours? We sent it across to our GPT. We got our response from the GPT, which is we're open Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And you can see this little, it might be hard to see. Maybe I'll zoom in. Yeah, okay. You can see these little bullets that we sent are the bullets that are breaking down our text into chunks. So that's why we can have faster latency as well. And then we have some other, this is the length of the, the response that we had. And yeah, you can basically just go through here and it's very easy to understand. And then text to speech is the response that we're sending back to the front end. We're open Monday to Friday. So once again, we open the stream up. We send the message to me, the first message to me. I asked the question saying, hi, what are the open hours? And then we're sending it to GPT. So if I open up the Mermaid, so I said, hi, what are the open hours? We transcribed it, sent it to the GPT. And then we generated the response from the GPT. And then we had to do text to speech back to Twilio. So that's why you see this happening twice here, once and then twice. And then we're basically sending up some logging for audio completion, which if I zoom out of this, and I think it's in streaming service, we have, creating a unique marker to track the when the audio finishes playing. So basically every time we're sending a response back to the user, we have that unique marker. So yeah, at a high level, this is exactly what's going on. You can see through here, you probably don't really need to see anyway exactly what's happening here, especially if you're pretty new and pretty green to this kind of stuff, but you can see it works. And then every time you change something in your, let's say, GPT service, if you want to play around with this for yourself, if you just follow these steps, every time you want to add a few more FAQs or you want to change anything here, you have to redeploy each and every time. Has to be done. Otherwise, when you call up the number, you're going to have the previous version. So make sure you always redeploy. And that's it. All right, guys, hope you enjoy. Once again, this code is going to be available on my Gumroad, so head across there. The link will be in my description. and you'll be able to, basically set this up in like the next 10 minutes. As you saw with me, it was super, super easy to set up. All right, and there we go. That's the entire overview of this very basic but high functionality inbound caller that answers FAQ questions. I was wearing a tea towel around my neck the entire time, so you can see it's something very easy that you can do, also wearing a tea towel around your neck. But yeah, if you're a business owner and you want this built out for yourself, if you want it customized to your own business, if you also want, again, outbound calling, you want to do some kind of outbound sales like lead gen, or if you want to like verify leads, qualify leads, if you want to have a really powerful inbound system that you can answer customers' questions, but on top of that, you could also create, I don't know, new user profiles and then send them some kind of link after that to generate a meeting request. Or if you want to do other crazy function calling, if you want to integrate this into make.com, whatever your heart desires. If you want to build this kind of system out for yourself, but you don't want to take care of it, I've left my email in the description of this video. I can build it out for you. Just send me an email and let's work together. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy what we've built out here today. Hope you enjoyed the code. It's going to be in my Gumroad, so you can go ahead and just download it, run it, and start using it yourself today. And enjoy your own local in-house AI caller. All right, see ya.